Greetings, my friends. I've been talking about these two items for years, but they're now coming together and joining together for what I believe will be the beast system. I only have 15 minutes on this video, so I have to get going as soon as possible. A lot to cover, so here we go. The video title, are Agenda 2030 and ID 2020 preparing the mark of the beast and putting the beast system in place? I believe so. Prophecies foretell a time in the near future when every person will be required to have a universally recognized unique ID number in order to participate in society. This compulsory numbering system will be administered by the Antichrist and his global governing system. In the early stages of this system, receiving a number will seem harmless. It will be just like another number, not unlike a debit card or social security number used to function in everyday life. For instance, most nations currently function under a national ID system, which allows their citizens access to government subsidies, financial transactions, healthcare, insurance, etc. We now have that in America, by the way, ID 2020. Once the Antichrist assumes full control of the world government, this numbering system will be turned into a method of control. Judging by the current moves towards a cashless society, it's likely that by then, most purchases will be made digitally, and everyone will rely on their particular number for even the most basic essentials. Without it, no one will be able to legally buy or sell anything. In order for an individual's number to remain active, he or she will be forced to worship or pledge allegiance to the Antichrist and his system. According to Scripture, this is the exact individual economic sanctioning model that will be used by the Antichrist to force the world into compliance to his global governing structure. The prophecy is found in Revelation 13, 16, 18. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, that no man might buy it or sell, save he that hath the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it's the number of a man, and his number is 666. Notice the Antichrist will cause the small, poor, and bond to receive a mark as well. The poor and the bond will have nothing to offer him, but it's not their money that he is after. It's all about dependency, adherence to his system, allegiance, and absolute control, a form of worship. At the peak of his reign over the world government, the Antichrist will see absolute compliance to his system as a mode of worship. Just look at how closely the prophecy aligns with many of the global numbering systems being proposed today. We are currently seeing precursors to the system focused on indigenous people around the globe. For instance, the Central African Republic is claimed to be one of the poorest nations on earth, with a per capita income estimated at $640 a year. Many of them rely on aid for survival in some of the harshest living conditions on earth. However, they are told that the lack of a national identification card will keep them from being recognized and protected by national law, excludes them from legal protection, eliminates their ability to vote, disqualifies them from obtaining formal employment, and blocks any and all social services benefits and development schemes. These people are destitute and unable to give anything in return for assistance. But in order to be protected by the government in a war-torn country to be granted just the basic needs of society, they're required to have a number. Why? Because the governments know the only reason to number people is to track and control them. Sustainable Development Goals were unanimously adopted by 193 member states of the UN, including the United States, on September 25, 2015. These goals make up the international community's 15-year socialistic blueprint of global governance for every person on Earth. Aptly named Transforming Our World, the Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development, the goal is a universal policy agenda designed to convert the nations of the world into a global community governed by the United Nations and by one person eventually. The agenda is comprised of 17 main goals accompanied by 169 focused targets designed to manage the planet. I say socialistic because the plan includes socialistic principles of wealth distribution, stating that the reduction of inequality will only be possible if wealth is shared and income inequality is addressed. I refer to it as global governance of every aspect of every person on Earth, since the plan states, we commit to making fundamental changes in the way our societies produce and consume goods and services. Governments, international organizations, the business sector, and other non-state actors and individuals must contribute to changing unsustainable consumption and production patterns. And notice this is the UN, not the EU, as so many clueless Christians think the Antichrist is going to rule from. The propaganda is that humans are using the Earth's resources at such a rate that nothing will be left for future generations. Therefore, the UN, one world government, must establish a master plan to govern the Earth's citizens. It must, in true socialistic form, redistribute the wealth of the world so that everyone is considered equal. 2, control the production and consumption of every person. 3, strive to achieve universal health care. 4, control the climate. 5, manage our cities and infrastructure. 6, govern the oceans. And 7, govern the land along with all ecosystems. These are sustainable development goals. This is a one world government. The problem is the administration of the plan has the old saying, you can't manage what you can't measure. Consider the size of the effort. There are approximately 8 billion people on the earth today. Target goal of goal number 3 is to achieve universal health care. How do you roll out such a system and monitor it effectively? You can't go by a name. There are tens of thousands of John Smiths in the U.S. alone. That's why the only conceivable solution to track the administration of this plan is to ensure that every human being has a unique identification number. Goal 16.8 and 16.9, the transforming of our world. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development preamble states, as we embark on this collective journey, global governance, we pledge that no one will be left behind. Goal 16 and Target 8, 16.8 and 9, 16.9 of Sustainable Development Goals both strive to include every person on Earth in the ever-expanding global governing system of the UN. 16.8 states, broaden and strengthen the participation of developing countries in the institutions of global governance. 16.9 states, by 2030, provide legal identity for all, including birth registration. In order for the elite to establish a true global government in their mind, it must include every single person on Earth. It makes no difference if they live in a jungle or the slums of inner city and make up the poorest of the poor. One can understand the desire to help the poor. We can offer to give them a bowl of soup, provide a bath, a place to sleep, or the right for even a new pair of shoes. It's simply the right thing to do. The problem is forcing these individuals to receive legal ID papers or an ID number in order to gain access to some of these provisions. There are major efforts being made to implement the Sustainable Development Goals by supplying the poorest people on the planet their own unique ID number. Why? They claim the refugees, migrants, and the poor must have a way to identify themselves in order to function in society, but that's not the overall goal. Goal 16.8 states, broaden and strengthen participation of developing countries in the institutions of global governance. Drawing every nation into participation of institutions of global governance is the driver. You see, my friends, in the beginning, this numbering system will look like an investment in the future of the poor. But in the last days, the Antichrist will use it as a method of control. ID2020 now. In May 2016, the first ID2020 summit was held at the UN headquarters in New York. The summit brought together 400 people from 150 private sector companies and 11 UN agencies to discuss how to provide a unique ID number for every person on the planet, including the 1.5 billion people living without any form of recognized ID. Some of the companies in attendance were Bloomberg, Brigham Young University, Cisco Systems, Cornell University, Ernst & Young, Forbes, Google, IBM, JP Morgan, Microsoft, and NASDAQ. The two main outcomes from the meeting were widespread consensus among ID2020 attendees that identity is both a fundamental human right and a necessary prerequisite for the success of the Sustainable Development Goals, and 2, sweeping commitments from the conference attendees to contribute towards the shared goal of universal digital identity. And again, you see how they're saying it's a human right? They're trying to get you hooked on it. Did you catch that? The world government, UN, views a universal digital ID as absolutely necessary for the success of their global governing scheme to transform the world by 2030. ID2020.org answers that question. Why identify? A fundamental human right, Article 6 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights stipulates that everyone has a right to the recognition everywhere on the planet as a person before the law. The Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2030, including Target 16.9, which aims to provide legal ID to all, including birth registration, by 2030. Necessary to access basic services. Individuals are required to show ID to access healthcare and education, vote, and access other social assistance programs. Critical for accountability and governance. Governments without an accurate system of ID struggle to provide well-coordinated social services simply because the number of beneficiaries is unknown and precise targeting is impossible. And without clear registries, the risk of leakages and corruption are high. In Nigeria, enrollment of civil services saved approximately $74 million by eliminating ghost workers on payroll. A gateway to economic opportunity. More than 2.5 billion adults do not have a bank account or use formal financial services, making it difficult to move out of poverty or weather a period of hardship. Connecting people with digitally based financial tools and services requires accessible, secure, and verifiable ID systems. Important for gender equality. Women with an official identity are empowered to play a greater role in household decisions and maintain financial independence. Furthermore, ID can be an important defense against child marriage, exploitation, and trafficking. A key enabler of global development. In addition to the intrinsic benefit of identity, it's necessary prerequisite for achieving many of the other SDGs, international goals, will be difficult to reach or measure without a way to identify beneficiaries. Let's pause, because I want you to notice similarities in ID 2020 and the prophecy found in Revelation 13, 16, 18. Let me get back where I'm at. I lost my place. Okay. According to this prophecy, in the end time, the Antichrist will cause everyone on earth to receive their own unique ID number in order to function in society. It will be implemented to such a degree that without this ID number, a person will not be able to buy or sell. Now consider the explanation that was provided by the ID 2020 project for the identification listing of every person on the face of the earth. Necessary to access basic services such as access to healthcare and education, as well as other social assistance programs, critical accountability and governance, access to a bank account or other financial services. For instance, if the global community were to transform into a cashless society, it would make it impossible for an individual without proper ID to function in society. Legal identity is necessary for the implementation of at least 10 sections of the Sustainable Development Goals, social protection, floors, including the most vulnerable, assistance in dealing with shocks and disasters, equal rights, economic resources, property and finance, specific empowerment of women in this area, improvements in maternal and child health, governance coverage by vaccines and similar treatments, improving energy efficiency and eliminating harmful energy subsidies, child protection, including the ending of harmful child labor, reducing the cost of making remittances, reducing corruption, fighting crime and terrorism, and strengthening and improving the equity of fiscal policy. Everybody wants that. Now you can see how important it is for the world government, the UN, that every person on earth is given their own unique ID number. Without the numbering system, it'd be virtually impossible to fully implement and monitor the Sustainable Development Goals. A global ID system. The effort to establish a new universal ID database is the goal behind ID 2020. That's why John Edge, co-founder of the Global ID 2020 initiative, recruited the help of UN, technology companies, and banks to see if they can come up with a solution by 2020. Blockchain, I talked about a lot, which first helped account and authenticate Bitcoin cryptocurrencies, are now being used to help out with ID 2020. If they're hacker proof, they can't be hacked because a lot of computers have all the information and they must all be verified with each other. They can't be hacked. On the identity blockchain, individuals would store their data in a sort of locker or escrow account, allowing people to access it on a need-to-know basis. This system is seen as a great advantage to refugees and migrants since they no longer have to be reliant on national governments for their identity. According to Coexist, the exact details of how a new global identity system would work are still to be worked out, but the bosses say it would involve a database overseen by the UN, accessible to individuals even on their own smartphones. If you want to notice 2 points, Dakota Gruner, the global ID system would evolve into a database overseen by an international, non-aligned organization, the UN. Patrick Spence believes that the establishment of the universal ID system has many hurdles to cross, but they are working on them right now to get this ID protocol to have everybody have their own IDs. Both parties recognize the need for a universal numbering system overseen by the world government, the mark of the beast. According to Patrick Spence, ID 2020 is a global strategic initiative aimed to help deliver against the UN Sustainable Development Goal of legal ID for all. Although it did not, at this point, we cannot say for sure that the efforts of ID 2020 will result in the global numbering system that will be used by the Antichrist one day. Perhaps the other many endeavors with the same goal that are ongoing will put place before then. This is what we know. The Bible prophesies that a one world government will be established in the near future, which will be ruled by the Antichrist. Once the Antichrist assumes control, he will use a global numbering system to economically sanction every person on earth to confirm and dictate edits. It's possible that 2020 could be successful in creating the universal ID system, including both great and small, rich and poor, free and bond, which should someday be taken over by the Antichrist. If you'd like prayer for anything, my friends, contact me. I pray for you every day. I love you all so much. Pray the prayer, do the 6 steps I have in the box below the video. If you're unsaved and backslidden, and look up True Christians, are dead and draweth nigh, we fly soon. I apologize. Had to run through. It made it just in 15 minutes. You guys take care of yourselves. I love you all so much. May God bless you. Share. Bye.